Well, the time is just gone 4 minutes past 8 as we kick off this morning. The big talking point in Cape Town has been the Waterloo Masjid out in Kenwyn in Cape Town. And we are going across now to be joined by Faizel Sayed to unpack the arrest. And we have learned that last night, Molana Muhammad Farouk Rylands was held in Portsmouth Prison. Faisal, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome and shukran for your time.
Alaikum salam, Mr. Wadi, and thank you for having me. I admire you for being in studio at 8 o'clock throughout my television career. I would only come 8 o'clock to studio if there was breakfast, but that's another discussion.
Well, obviously that's another discussion, but clearly, I'm trying to figure out. You're talking about breakfast. What sort of breakfast would Molana Muhammad Farouk Ryland have had at Portsmouth
Correct.
Prison this morning? And
Yeah,
clearly, this has been a major cause for concern. We have been following developments since yesterday, since his arrest, and we've learned that this has been as a result of a court order. That was taken against him and in breach of a court order. Now, Faisal, I know you've been following, this the entire saga since it unfolded yesterday, right until the late hours of the night. We've heard about an appearance today at 2 p.m. We've heard about calls for people to be present at the court to register their anger and their protests. We've seen a full house at the Waterloo Mosque in Kenwyn last night as well. So you have been following these developments. Just your take, Faisal, before we get into specifics.
Mr. Wadi, thank you. It's a very interesting question because it opens up without going into the merits of everything right now. I'm only able to, at a later stage, go into some of the details which I had called reliable sources for last night, people at the center of it. And you know that I'm also part of the Muslim Judicial Council, and we've also issued a very broad statement. But in reflection, I must say that it is interesting that I brought up the issue of breakfast with you, and I think rightly so, because everybody's having breakfast at this time or just had breakfast, and you pointed it out so rightly. There's a Muslim brother, whether we agree or disagree with the legal corners of the matter or on what side of the fence we sit, how grievous was it for somebody to sit in Paulsmoor last night? And I visited Paulsmoor many times for matters, and I can tell you it's not the ordinary cells that is being held under the court, or it's not the ordinary cells that you have, the jail cells that you have at your local police station. Paulsmoor is a hardened, old place that have the most calculated criminals that you can find. And I hope that he was put in a place that obviously is aligned to where we sit with his matter today. But yes, an alim has been arrested, and I think that the MJC in particular last night, in one of its comments, did note that it does find it the absurdance of having an alim sit in jail for the night. But Inayat, I do have very broader philosophical commentary around that, but I'm just going to take my cue from you.
Well, certainly. And also, I think for me, personally, I've come to know Molana Farooq because when I go to Cape Town, I live in Kenwyn. I live right across the mosque. So I do visit the mosque regularly. I recall Molana Abdul Khalik Ali introducing me to Maulana Farooq, quite a while back. And since then, I was there recently in Ramadan as well. I met him quite a few times in the mosque. And really, he's just that type of person, humble, that quiet demeanor about him. But yet, you can see, despite what had happened, despite the court order against him, a regular in the mosque, a good rapport with the congregation, with the people that visit the mosque. So, a community man. And the fact that he has obviously been the Imam of the mosque for over 20 years, that alone actually speaks volumes. And for him to be treated in the manner in which, he was treated and in breach of the court order, which I am led to believe that he, as far as the court order is concerned, he was prevented from leading the congregation or performing the salah or leading the salah. And in this case, this didn't happen. I mean, he didn't lead the congregation at all.
Yes, correct. So my findings last night, in particular, going to, and I can only speak to you from a limited perspective. I am going to court later on and joining the rest of the team there to see what support we can give, because I think it is about showing support for the various philosophical reasons, which I'm going to speak to you about shortly. But some of the facts before us on the matter right now, and yes, we also want to ensure that we do observe the Audi Alterum Partem rule in terms of that there is always two sides to a matter, but how exhaustive are we when it comes to dealing with certain people and making sure that, that we also observe, there's a concept of husnul, and that at the same time that there are legal issues, but there's also these concepts that exist. But I mean, if we look at the matter, we see that Molana has been found in contempt of court. In particular, there was an issue that arises um, where there was a 6-month direct imprisonment, which had a suspensive suspended condition on it, which indicated that if he's in breach of that order, then you'd certainly get arrested. But in my view, for that to happen, it would have meant that a committee member or trustee in this case, from what I understand, had to then go and lodge that at some point to say, look, he has breached it, so have him arrested. And Mr. Wadi, I think that's where the question comes in. And the questions then start arising in terms of how much force do we use with each other in a community? You know that of late you've had me in studio last week dealing with court battles and dramas. And the questions that are now coming out of the community is latched to all of that. And before I go into that, let me maybe assert this position. While some of these incidences, which I'm going to cite for you now, may be ordinary criminal incidents that has happened in the Cape in the last couple of weeks, but let's just look at the ulama fraternity for a moment. Okay, we now see a couple of weeks ago, Molana Wanza is murdered, right? So you have an alim that is murdered. Then you have now one last night that is arrested. 3, 4 days ago, one was held at gunpoint. And I'm understanding that there could be separate incidences. Please just allow me to, to connect the dots for some reason. Then you see the matter with people which you had cited at the Mowbray Cemetery. For example, you go there and you try to serve the community. There are memes. You're being slandered, and all of that is going on. And then you see a matter, for example, where the MJC now in the last 3, 4 days elects a new committee, which they've got the right to do. And then you see a bunch of people coming out, and it's memes and it's name calling and all kind of thing. And I must start asking myself the question, and that is, and bringing it back to this point, do we get ulama arrested, for example? What is it? Are we in a moment in our time as Muslims in this country where the very structures that give us life, coherence, where they begin to disintegrate? Are we in a time where we burn everybody at the stake, like at the medieval times? And these are the images that I'm starting to see in my head. I'm starting to develop what we call a philosophical pessimism, which is a sort of worldview where the existence is ultimately characterized by utility or limitation. I think psychologists or rather philosophers call it teleological nihilism. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the term, but where they say that our state is under community scrutiny, our existence is becoming devoid of purpose and meaningful and being meaningful, implying an existential collapse because of the way that we deal with each other. Are we each other's own enemies? And in the end of the day, I'm going to direct this question that you posed very broadly, asking, we now see a trust. I've been fighting over trust recently. I know of three trusts that are being noted, and I'm not implying this about the trust at Waterloo. I'm giving the broader perspective as you asked me about my perspective. But do we see a nepotism of misuse of Islamic societal instruments, i.e., Waqf, a weaponizing of Islamic instruments for personal gain? Is this a corporate entity that is dipping an arm into something that is sacrosanct? We recently, like I said, saw the Mowbray Cemetery, someone trying to force entitlement over land, claiming financial contribution. And then we see yesterday our now acting High Court judge and attorney from DKVG attorneys, Ihsan Higgins, was quite respected in the community. And we see him saying in IOL yesterday that a wakaf is a perpetual Islamic endowment where an asset such as land, property, or cash is dedicated to charity with ownership transferred to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he further quotes and he says, and I quote him, he says, that the mosque belongs to the Muslim community. People who contribute financially feel they have authority, but technically that is not correct. The community must govern the mosque. This needs to be remedied by the community. So I'm saying that, while we have Molana in jail and prison right now, appearing in court at 2 o'clock this afternoon in the Labour Court, there are other questions that must be asked. Are we in a time where we see an issue happening in the community around Waqf, around trust control, around conflicting ownership? And do we say that when we need to act, are we acting beyond our means? Are we understanding that we're dealing with aliens? Are we understanding that we are dealing with people serving the community? Are you going to hang them up all the time? And those are the questions that Cape Town is asking.
What we'll do is, Faisal, I'm going to put you on hold. We're going to go for a quick air break. We'll be back.
Rejuvenating media day by day. This is Salam Media.
You know, it's a wonder how kids get anything done these days. With all the distractions, when do they even get time to study? As a mother, all I can really do is make sure they have all they need to perform at their best. That's why I choose to include Sunfoil, triple refined pure sunflower oil with every meal I make. Naturally cholesterol-free and approved by the Heart and Stroke Foundation as part of a balanced eating plan. So whether I'm cooking, frying or baking, I know every dish will be a wholesome one. Sunfoil, now we're cooking.
When disaster strikes, families lose everything in an instant. Homes destroyed, communities displaced. Hope fades into uncertainty. Our Global Emergency Fund ensures we respond without delay, delivering food, water, shelter, and healthcare to families in need. To support our Global Emergency Fund, visit islamicrelief.org.za.
Discover the Africa of your dreams and surround yourself with her spectacular beauty. Relax beneath her serene sunsets and explore wildlife at its natural best. It's where the pride of Africa comes together. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve. Get to know the Big Five or cruise on an elephant safari game drive. Interact with lion and tiger cubs and enjoy world-class halal cuisine while we pamper you during your 5-star stay. Indulge in the true African experience. For reservations, call now on 042 203 1400 or visit kwantu.co.za. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve, the place of gathering.
Operation Kurbani, Molana Timor will once again be taking a trip abroad for Kurbani. Many people in the villages live well below the poverty line and only eat meat on the days of Eid al-Adha. Support this cause at 2,170 Rand for 7 shares or 310 Rand per share. Contact Molana Timor, Molana Sajjad, Molana Hamad or Molana Abbad on 011 852 6324 or 072 299 9268 or 082 368 6866 or 072 697 0131 or 073 576 9786. All slaughtering will be supervised by a team of foreign and local ulama. Visit www.operationkurbani.org.za
Rejuvenating media day by day. This is Salam Media.
Well, we continue this morning with the big talking point in Cape Town, and that is the arrest of Molana Muhammad Farouk Rylands at the Kenwyn Masjid. And we are talking with Faizel Sayed, TV host and human rights activist. Faizel, just to continue, and I think this is very, very important in terms of what you were saying earlier as well, because we know some of the facts that have actually led to the arrest of Molana Farouk. We've heard about what the dispute was about previously, and also in terms of how this arrest came out, and the whole question about contempt of court. And this is important to understand. How does the court interpret contempt of court, and did he clearly violate the court order? Because there are gray areas. Yesterday, I spoke to Advocate Yusuf Khan out in Cape Town, and he mentioned something very, very important in terms of the legal interpretation of some of these issues that have been playing out, which has a totally different meaning from an Islamic perspective. Because we know in the case of Molana Farouk, there was a visiting imam that came, he ran the entire program. So Molana Farouk did not lead the program. It was just towards the end of the program, as a senior and out of respect, he requested Molana recite the closing dua. And I think for that reason, it was actually perceived to be him leading, and in violation of the court order. But coming to the authority over mosques. You spoke about Waqf, authority over trustees, authority over imams, authority over the community. Within ourselves, within the Muslim community, we have got ulama bodies, but we don't have any oversight committees. And unfortunately, this matter had to go to court, where an alim and a respected alim was actually arrested, where we could have had those mechanisms within our own community to deal with the situation. Or are the trustees at this point in time just given a license to do as they please without any oversight?
So, Adi, that's an interesting question, because that is the question I've been asking about other particular trusts that we are currently dealing with. For example, in what I call the land grab matter, which I spoke to you about last week, and that is that there's a trust which we see as a corporate entity, and the question that I posed, or rather the comment that I made earlier on, was that without making an allegation, but the questions that I'm asking broadly is it a capitalistic misuse of an Islamic societal instrument? What is our what is the point of being ultra virus? Not from a legal perspective. Are we weaponizing, like I said earlier, are we weaponizing an Islamic instrument that is actually meant for communal purpose by applying the issue of a trust onto the Waqf, and then deciding to do what we need to do sitting there? And there's many questions in terms of trust that are currently going on. But Mr. Wadi, just allow me for a moment to also just state to you that because you mentioned our good friend and somebody that I sort of take my legal guidance from as a student, Advocate Yusuf Khan Dawai, is that, there's much also going on there. If we see that you mentioned that there is a court order in place, and we understand the judicial process and the the credibility of community engagement with it, the principles that there must be a respect for court orders at the same time, because there is a legal obligation, but there must be one that finds resonance itself within Islamic tradition, in our view, wherein an order, there's justice and upholding of any type of covenants that are held in high regard. However, at the same time, the question that so many people are saying in Cape Town today, that we understand court orders, we understand that there are rules, we understand there are regulations, but to what extent do we go, and do we start becoming vindictive and saying, let me show somebody a point? I'm asking the question only by having them arrested on a frivolity. And I'm saying that because you mentioned it clearly. I initially, when I heard about the matter, I thought I read the court order, I read the writ, which is very brief. I think I sent it to you last night. And it then spoke about the areas that can be violated from a legal perspective. And that was leading the prayer and all of that. I then made key calls to key persons in the system last night that said that he did not lead the prayer in front, but it is like, when you are usually sitting at a janaza or anything like that, and you see a more senior alim or any other alim for that matter, as a courtesy, you will say, Maulana, could you make the dua? Right? Now, the question last night was, does that dua land you in Paulsmoor prison? Right. I think that we in a very very difficult position, especially in the Cape at the moment, because the questions are rising hard and fast here in the Cape, and that is, where do we bridge the control of trust, work of properties, communal engagement, what is best for the community? We understand the lights must be paid. We understand that the salaries must be paid. But to what extent do we use a legal entity that is a trust? And when does a corporate entity, how deep does it continue dipping its arm into something that is sacrosanct, like a mosque or a cemetery? And that's the question that, I mean, Maulana is going to court at 2 o'clock, and we make dua for his release. We also call on the community that the Labour Court at 113 Loop Street this afternoon at 1:30, if the community can be there in his support, the hearing starts at 2 o'clock. Now, if he is not released today, I must give you some rather confirmed shocking news, because I spoke to key people within the legal space last night. Are you aware, Nayat, that he's going to spend 6 months in Pollsmoor or similar facility if we do not get through the court process today? And if that happens, then we have a blot and a stain on all our faces, not only in Cape Town, but the whole of South Africa as a community, because then we are burning people at the stake for wanting to serve the community. And I feel at this moment, I can feel it hitting me here, because it's become a difficult time for people serving the community. And I speak of experience.
Well, certainly, Faisal. And also, I think, one of the questions was, just how united is the community in this matter concerning Molana Farooq. What are your observations, Faisal?
So I saw some videos coming through last night from the community, and there seems to be, I feel, that the trust itself does have the right to defend itself, and it has its own merits on the matter. And clearly, like I mentioned early on, we have a concept, and we must hear both sides. Audi Ultram Partum. We hear both sides of an issue. But at the same time, if you're asking me a specific question, and that is, what is the response of the community? The community is absolutely outraged. Think it's I'm not sure if it's too much about the merits of the matter before it, but I think it's about the exertion of power over somebody, and the allowing of somebody to go into Paulsmoor, which is a dreaded place in Cape Town. It's like the Guantanamo Bay of Cape Town. You're sending somebody there that is used to standing with you in the masjid every night, that's used to leading salah, used to giving the khutbah at another mosque on a Friday, for example. Now that person is in Paulsmoor last night. And the question that arises is that the community sees that part saying, was that appropriate? Was that appropriate? So they are very upset, to say the least. So I'm expecting big numbers today at court.
Well, I'm sure. And also, I see that, there is a fundraiser as well, and there is a petition as well. You're going around for the removal of the trustees, but the fundraiser in terms of legal fees, yeah, because, this is quite a serious matter. It could actually go, I mean, we know that this is going to be at the Labour Court, but this could be a High Court matter as well.
Yes, the Labour Court itself, the jurisdiction of the Labour Court is the High Court. So it's like being at the High Court. And so the cost is going to be High Court cost. And obviously, if they're going to pull in further an additional Labour specialist, that's going to be a bit more. But I can tell you from experience, these cases are very expensive. So the community is called to support the Maulana, so that at least that burden can be attended to get him out of there, and then any following legal matters. I'm not sure to what extent an appeal can be heard, but obviously there would be appeals that are available going down the line. So I think those are going to cost money if things are not successful today. So there's that appeal, and then there's also the one that you spoke about. There's a petition that's doing high rounds in Cape Town. Everybody sharing it on multiple groups, calling for the removal of the trustees at this point. And that's a separate matter, but I think we need to get through today. We can't have Molana Farouk sitting in the cold of Paulsmoor prison tonight again. In actual fact, I don't know. I know when I got my briefing from you last night, I could sense your apprehension to the matter. I could sense your, I'm sorry, I'm being frank, I could sense your pain all the way from Johannesburg last night. And I'm certain people woke up in the middle of the night, and I did. I woke up at 3 this morning, ran to the loo, and the first thought on my mind was that I need to do this interview with you this morning. But I do this interview out of this very nice home office of mine. And there's somebody that is actually, while I'm speaking to you right now, I've been walking around. I don't know if he's in, what does he have, a bolt stuck to his leg? Is he walking around in one of those orange suits? What is he eating right now that we spoke about? And so is the force of that fair based on the transgression, perhaps in the court's eyes, in terms of contempt? But do we as Muslims, are we going to continue running to down each other in courts when we don't agree and disagree about issues? And you brought up the issue about, I was in Sharia court last week, by the way, for a matter, defending a matter. And the matter was settled in Sharia court. And yes, maybe we should be going there first, because you asked the question earlier.
Absolutely, Faisal. Well, Faisal, we're obviously going to be watching, what transpires this afternoon. I'm sure you will
Yes,
keep me posted as well, in
yes,
terms of whatever.
I will. Yes, so sorry about that. I will endeavor to send Salam Media something from the courts this afternoon for your use at least.
Well, Jazakallah khairan so much for that. And obviously, we hope that, inshallah, that all goes well, and particularly for Molana Farooq, that he doesn't have to spend, as you said, it's very cold out in Cape Town, and he doesn't have to spend another night in a prison cell. And also, we have been trying to obviously make contact with the trustees to find out what was their thinking behind, having Molana arrested as well. But hopefully, we can get somebody from the trustees as well. But let's just wait and see what actually happens during the course of the day. But for now, Faisal, we thank you, Jazakallah, for taking time out with us right here on Salam Media. All the best to you, my brother. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Faizel Sayed, TV talk show host and rights activist, against the background of the arrest and the subsequent imprisonment of Maulana Muhammad Farouk Rylands, former Imam of the Waterloo Masjid out in Kenwyn in Cape Town.